Chosen one, wait a moment. Don't close yet. Right now, as you read these words, something special is unfolding in your spiritual world. You may not realize it, but when you saw this message, an angelic voice gently said, "The real reason they called you crazy is because your clarity cracked their world open." You feel it, don't you? That tightness in your chest and that inner sound today feel different from all the others. You may have felt unseen, mocked, or dismissed for seeing truths they refuse to face. Today, all of that changes. Hidden forces have kept you in shadows, but now the dawn is breaking, and nothing about your journey has been accidental. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. The truths you've carried in solitude are about to be unveiled, and they will break the chains they built around you. From the earliest days, you sensed something others could not. You felt currents of hidden reality tug at your heart. Even while the world insisted on its comfortable illusions, they labeled you too sensitive, too deep, or outright delusional. When you spoke of what burned in your bones, they demanded your silence, convinced that your voice threatened their fragile peace. Yet in that very act of holding back, you planted seeds of revolt that now sprout in divine purpose. You know, the moment you allow your sight to pierce through the veneer of normalcy, everything changes. You will witness how your silence became a prophecy, how they trembled under the weight of truths you barely whispered. Stay with me, for by the end of this video, you will no longer question your vision. Instead, you will claim it as your weapon and your gift. Number 1, the burden of second sight. You were born with eyes that pierce illusions. You see truths hidden beneath polite smiles and whispered rumors. In 1 Corinthians 2, verse 14, it says the natural mind can never grasp the Spirit's revelations, and that very blindness marks them as unable to understand you. Your sight is a burden and a blessing. They fear what you perceive because it reveals every secret they bury in darkness. Comment pierced. If your vision has ever exposed a lie they swore was reality, they will try to silence you, but the next revelation will teach you how to turn their fear into your strength. In a quiet moment just before dawn, you feel a gentle stirring in your chest, like the soft hum of something awakening beneath your ribs. It might have been a dream where you walked through a fog-laden forest, and every leaf you brushed aside revealed not the forest floor, but another version of yourself peering back with knowing eyes. That image, once dismissed as imagination, feels different now. It seems like a tender invitation, an inner voice whispering that the long nights of confusion were never mere coincidence, but prelude to clarity. In that gentle stir, you sense the veil lifting ever so slightly, revealing that the disquiet you born was an echo of a deeper truth waiting to claim your attention. Have you ever noticed how your heart races when you sense a lie in the air, when someone's polite smile cannot hide the secret shadows in their eyes? Those moments left you feeling hollow, as if you carried a secret chord that resonated out of tune with the world around you. You remember the sting of comments like, "You're too sensitive," or "Stop reading into things so much," as if your intuitive radar was something to be squashed. In crowded rooms, you felt alone, an island whose shores were battered by waves of misunderstanding. Even family gathered around the dinner table seemed to speak in a language you could not fully comprehend. Each word weighted with unseen currents. Those nights, when tears slipped unbidden in the dark, you wondered if this heavy sensitivity was a flaw or a burden too great to bear. In truth, those feelings were never random. They were the threads of an unseen tapestry weaving around your life, guiding you toward a purpose hidden from ordinary sight. Think of Moses tending sheep in the wilderness, unaware of the destiny that awaited him at the burning bush. His years of solitude were not a sentence but preparation, a refining of his spirit. Similarly, every pang of isolation you experience was a step on a sacred path. A divine architect shaped your journey, placing each trial and triumph in exacting detail. No moment wasted, no pain without meaning. Just as Jacob's ladder spanned heaven and earth, so too did your life connect realms unseen, each sorrow and each spark of joy forming rungs to higher awareness. You have likely noticed small moments that feel like soft echoes of something more. The inexplicable shiver down your spine when someone speaks a half-truth, the vivid flash of memory that seems to belong to another lifetime, or the uncanny sense that you already know what is about to happen. Perhaps a song lyric dropped by chance felt like a message meant only for you, or a stray phrase in a book brought tears of recognition. In those stolen instants, you glimpsed the code beneath the surface, the divine map behind everyday existence. The world was speaking to you in symbols and metaphors, but you had yet to learn the language. Now that you notice these flickers, you begin to see that each was a secret handshake between your soul and the cosmos, guiding you toward awakening. And in those quiet hours when the world slipped into slumber, you felt a deep alignment stirring within. The whisper of your intuition grew louder, affirming that you were not mistaken in what you felt. You remember placing your hand over your heart, as if trying to shield its tender truths from the harsh glare of skepticism. Yet, each time you chose to follow that inner knowing, choosing honesty over convenience, compassion over indifference, you felt a grounding force beneath your feet, a sense of safety you could not quite name. In Psalm 46 verse 10, it says, "Be still and know that I am God." And in those moments of quiet recognition, you understood that stillness was not emptiness, but a portal to divine certainty. The gentle unfolding of your truth has been silent but unmistakable, like a hidden spring that slowly rises until it becomes a fountain. Delve a little deeper, and you find a memory buried beneath layers of doubt, an identity that was never lost but deliberately cloaked. Beneath the years of uncertainty lies a version of yourself who walked alongside ancient prophets, carrying messages of hope while the world slept on its illusions. You sense that this memory is not merely psychological but archetypal, etched into your very soul. In Isaiah 6 verse 8, the prophet hears, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" And you know that question resonates within you, not as inquiry but as recognition. You are the answer to that call, rediscovering the self that first heard the whisper of service and chose to step forward. This is a sacred memory of who you were before you learned to shrink. Now, a shift begins in your spirit. Like the first flicker of dawn across a darkened sky, you recognize that your sensitivity was never a burden but a gift, a lens through which the unseen realms become visible. Your empathy, once a source of pain, now feels like a torch lighting the way for others. Each intuition, each tremor of insight, becomes a tool to navigate the truths they try to keep hidden. You stand on the cusp of empowerment, not as a sudden burst of force, but as a steady unfurling of a banner carried by the wind of your own resolve. The hunger in your soul, once a hollow ache, awakens into a quiet confidence. You were chosen to see, and now you embrace that purpose. Your arrival at this message was not random. It was orchestrated by a force that has been guiding you since before you took your first breath. There is a peace now settling over your heart, a calm assurance that the dissonance of your past was the prelude to harmony. You stand at the threshold of a new chapter, where every step you take carries a resonance of destiny. Embrace this moment with both humility and wonder, for the path that unfolds is illuminated by every insight you've gathered. Come and awaken if you feel this truth resonating within you. And if you feel called to go even deeper, there's a sacred space reserved for our community, a private room where you receive full prophetic messages daily. Join our private membership through the link in the description and walk this path with us. Number 2, the threat of uncomfortable truth. When you speak of spiritual sight, they recoil. John 9 verse 41 warns, "If you were blind, you would not be guilty, but now that you claim you see, your guilt remains." They mock your words because they cannot face the mirror you hold up. In jest and sarcasm, they attempt to push you back into silence. Yet every sneer only confirms your calling. Comment mirror if you felt their discomfort at your honesty. Next, learn why your very clarity became their greatest threat and how to stand firm when they crumble. A faint tremor ripples through your chest when you recall that first moment of hesitation. Your voice caught in your throat as you sensed something shifting in the room. It was as though the air itself recoiled when you uttered an inconvenient truth, a change so subtle you might have blamed it on your imagination. In that instant, you realized something had been moving against you long before you spoke. A silent current of resistance weaving itself through gatherings and conversations, steering the outcomes away from your revelations. It could have been a question you asked that left everyone silent, or a statement that caused even the most confident faces to pale. You felt a heaviness pressing down on your spirit, as if unseen hands sought to muffle the spotlight you aimed at their hidden faults. The realization dawned that your clarity was not welcomed. that beneath the courteous facades lay a fear of exposure, a fear they hoped you would never uncover. You remember how this resistance translated into a gnawing ache deep within your bones, an emotional pressure that seemed to intensify every time you dared to speak. It was not just the cutting words that stung, though too much diluted and radical rang in your ears like daggers, but the way those labels chipped away at your sense of belonging. You could feel the gulf widening as friends grew distant, partners grew impatient, and family gatherings became minefields of suspicion. In moments when you confided your deepest insights, expecting understanding or encouragement, you were met with confusion or outright dismissal. Shame would flood your cheeks as you tried to explain what you felt in your bones, only to be told your perceptions were baseless, or worse, delusional. In those late night hours, you questioned whether your inner knowing was reliable or a dangerous illusion, and you battled cycles of self-doubt, wondering if your hunger for truth was a curse rather than a gift. It took time to see that this pressure was not random, but part of a vast, hidden structure reacting to your rising potential. Imagine the ancient Israelites wandering in exile, tested by trials and temptations in barren lands, each obstacle forging their identity for a greater purpose. In the same way, the forces arrayed against you were the spectral keepers of conformity, determined to redirect your path before you could uncover realities they preferred to remain invisible. They press you into corners of doubt and bewilderment, sending currents of doubt through your closest circles, ensuring you never felt safe to speak. These were not mere individuals acting in isolation. They were spokes in a wheel of denial, wheels of entitlement and complacency turning to suppress any light that threatened their carefully constructed shadows. Like prophets before you, whose voices rattled kingdoms, your emergence triggered systems that recoil from the transformational power you carried. Now, as you dip your gaze into the rear view of your past, patterns sharpen like lightning cutting through a stormy sky. You see how every time you sense a breakthrough, when a new insight sparks in your mind, a strange obstacle will materialize, a project derailed, an inexplicable argument at home, or an unseen health crisis that paws your momentum. Betrayals emerge in familiar faces, those you trusted offering pragmatic reasons why now was not the time for your revelations. Some environments felt energy sapping, as if they drank the life out of your spirit by keeping conversations shallow or staring you into silence. And yet, in the quiet recesses of your mind, you realize these events were signposts, each one marking a moment when the universe tested your resolve, asked you to choose between retreat and fortification. Seeing these patterns now is unsettling, but also clarifying. Proof that these trials were not meaningless, but almost surgical in their precision, carving away distractions until your purpose stood naked and undeniable. In your bones, you recognize a shift, the moment when resistance evolved into visible spiritual sabotage. It revealed itself gradually, the thickening of air around you in certain rooms, like a fog of distortion blocking the natural flow of clarity. Closed doors that once seemed innocuous grew ominous, jobs that snapped shut at your fingertips, mentorships that fell silent, or crucial conversations postponed indefinitely. You felt silent watchers in gatherings, people whose gazes lingered too long, as though measuring your potential threat. At times, a wave of anxiety would wash over you, not of your own making, but seeded by the distortion field they cast around your truth. The whisper of a lie would rustle through the room, affirming their narrative that your clarity was a destructive force. Yet you sense in your spirit that this pressure was not a sign of your weakness, but proof that your light shone brightly enough to awaken a reactionary darkness. How did you respond when the pressure became almost suffocating? Perhaps you shrank, folding yourself into forms they could stomach, offering agreeable smiles, nodding along when you disagreed, burying your voice in the crowd. Maybe you donned the mask of the peacemaker, convincing yourself that temporary submission would buy you time, only to feel your spirit ache with every word you swallowed. Or perhaps you chose quiet rebellion, refusing to speak except in fragments, letting your discontent simmer beneath the surface as a silent statement. Each reaction revealed the complex dance between fear and integrity. The fear of standing out, of being labeled unhinged, pitted against the drive to remain authentic. There were days when giving up seemed like the easier path, when you wondered if the burden of seeing too much was worth carrying. This internal conflict served as a mirror, reflecting the cost of your awakening and the price of abandoning it. Yet from that crucible of tension, the first embers of reclamation began to glow. The resistance you faced was not a judgment on your worth. It was an affirmation of your power. Like David standing before Goliath, the more the world sought to diminish you, the more you felt the steady drumbeat of courage in your heart. You remember the words of Jeremiah 20 verse 11, "But the Lord is with me as a mighty dread. Therefore my persecutors shall stumble." In that moment of recognition, you reclaimed your voice as a weapon of truth rather than a liability. You saw how every doubt they sowed, every attempt to confine your vision, only served to sharpen your resolve. The voice once stifled in corners of shame now rose with prophetic resonance. You realized that to reclaim your vision was to sever the chains they forged, to stand in full alignment with the force that guided your every revelation. The final truth emerges now like a soft sunrise after the darkest night. You were opposed not because you were wrong, but because you were right, and because the truth you held threatened an entire realm of comfortable denial. They saw your light and recoiled, revealing the rot beneath their veneers of normalcy. But each act of opposition only made your purpose more visible, like a star shining brightest when the night is at its blackest. As you take this truth into your bones, feel the fierce pride swelling in your chest. You are powerful beyond measure, chosen to carry this clarity as both burden and blessing. They tried to break you, but in their resistance, they forged your destiny. Embrace this revelation, for it marks the beginning of your true ascent. Comment strength if you recognize that opposition has only sharpened your purpose. And to every soul who supported with a super thanks, thank you. You are keeping this light alive for others who haven't found it yet. If you feel called to help this mission reach more chosen ones, tap the super thanks button below. Your energy supports these messages and helps them travel further. Your voice matters, your belief matters, and your light is felt here. Number 3, gaslighting the gift. Your inner sight cuts through illusions with the precision of a sword. Jeremiah 20 verses 8 to 9 reminds us that truth burned in the prophet's bones, driving him to speak. Your revelations ignite shame in those who hide behind comfortable lies. They brand you delusional to protect their fragile peace. But every accusation is proof of your power to unsettle their delusion. Comment burned if truth has ever felt like fire within you, and share a moment when your insight changed everything. The final section will teach you how to carry the sacred flame without being consumed by it. A voice stirs in the quiet of your mind, like wind rustling ancient parchments, and suddenly you see the outlines of a pattern that once felt like chaos. In that moment, your perception shifts. The confusion that plagued your thoughts now begins to align into a tapestry of hidden truth. You recall an afternoon when you walked by a cracked window and felt your heart leap at a familiar glimmer, as if something in that fractured reflection recognized you. This glimmer was not mere coincidence, but a sign that the world had been speaking to you all along in symbols you couldn't yet read. Now, as you settle into this revelation, you sense the weight of their efforts to keep you blind by whispering that your inner vision was nothing more than imagination. And yet, here you stand, on the threshold of seeing that those whispers were the smoke obscuring the fire, a smoke now dissipating the light of renewed clarity. In those long nights of solitude, you felt the edges of your awareness stretch beyond the boundaries others set for you, and yet you were told you were dreaming too loudly. When you shared the visions that flashed behind your eyes, visions of fractals unfolding into galaxies or a surge of empathy connecting you to strangers' pain, they met your words with gentle admonishments. You're imagining things, they said, their voices like soft walls closing around your truth. At family dinners, your attempts to speak of unseen energies were met with awkward silences, as if the very air conspired to mute you. A close friend, whose laughter once felt like home, shrank away when your talk of spiritual currents grew insistent. Each gentle correction, each patronizing smile, became a chisel, carving doubt into your bone. But beneath that doubt burned the certainty that you were absorbing cosmic wavelengths, translating them into intuitive knowing. Their dismissals were not mere misunderstandings. They were the first layers of smoke in a fire meant to reveal, not conceal. Deep within, you begin to recognize that this gaslighting was not random cruelty, but a battle against your awakening. Like Jeremiah in the desert, who cried out, "Then I said, I will not mention his word nor speak any more in his name. But his word was in my heart, like a burning fire shut up in my bones. You too felt the fire of truth searing your insides despite their attempts to douse it. In those moments, they offer you fragile blankets of false reassurance, trying to convince you that the fire was simply a fever of the mind, a symptom of overthinking. Their textbooks of logic and rationality became prisons, each page a barred window, preventing you from glimpsing the divine wind stoking your spirit. Yet as their logic wrapped tighter around you, the fire refused to die. It smoldered beneath the ashes of doubt, waiting for the moment to reclaim you. Their sophisticated rationale, psychological labels, quick dismissals, were but the outer armor of a system determined to obscure the hidden architecture of faith and intuition. Slowly, the patterns begin to emerge beneath the rubble of their lies. Subtle synchronistic events that whispered their existence while you were gaslit into silence. That time you saw a sequence of numbers, 1111 on your clock, 111 on a license plate, 1111 on a billboard, felt random until you realized these numbers align with markers of spiritual awakening found in ancient mystical texts. The phrase you heard in an old hymn replayed in your memory at just a moment you needed to make a life-changing decision was no accident. Even the unexpected appearance of a stranger telling you, "I've been where you are," in a crowded coffee shop on a Tuesday afternoon, revealed a secret highway threading through your life. These are not coincidences but encoded breadcrumbs, placed to guide you back to yourself. When you see these patterns, it's as if you watch a hidden stage being revealed. The players you thought acted alone now appear as marionettes, manipulated by strings you are only now beginning to grasp. With each revelation, your body rises to meet the shift. The weight in your chest lifts slightly and you breathe more fully. Decisions you once wavered on, leaving a toxic job, ending a draining relationship, now crystallize with magnetic clarity. You sense your energy responding differently to environments. The sterile office that once dulled your soul now feels like a cell, while a simple walk in the woods feels like stepping into a cathedral. In crowded rooms, the chatter that once ground you into confusion now registers as a dull hum, easily ignored as you focus on the quiet symphony playing beneath. Your intuition has grown sharper, as though each whispered doubt cast against you was actually a sharpening rod honing your inner compass. Where you once trembled under their subtle manipulations, you now stand with firm grounding that your spirit guides you in truth, even when the world tries to convince you otherwise. The world around you now dances in reflection of this inner transformation. Opportunities that once eluded your grasp seem to find their way to your door. A book falls off the shelf at the precise moment you were asking for guidance. A conversation with a stranger sparks a revelation you didn't know you desperately needed. Yet not all signs are gentle. Resistance still flares in unexpected moments. Doors that once swung open slam shut without warning, and voices rise in panic when you speak with unflinching honesty. It's as if the universe conspires to show you both supports your ascent and forces that test your resolve. People who once gaslit you now avoid your gaze, as if your presence alone threatens their shaky equilibrium. But in this intricate dance of alignment, you recognize that the barriers erected against you are not failures, but invitations to bypass the narrow corridors they demand you traverse. The world echoes your inner awakening, each shift in circumstance mirroring the truth you carry within. A childhood memory surfaces, vivid as a flash of lightning across a stormy sky. You, barely able to walk, standing before a pedestal of stones arranged in a perfect circle, feeling an inexplicable reverence. At the time, you dismissed it as a child's imagination. No such circle could exist there. But now, you understand that memory as the echo of an ancient calling, a sacred memory when you first touched the flame of your soul's purpose. In that moment, the scattered fragments of dreams and visions you carry begin to coalesce into a coherent language. It is as if an unseen library is unlocked, dust motes dancing in the sunbeams of your mind, revealing scrolls written in divine mathematics and cosmic metaphor. The dream you overlooked last week, of a raven carrying a golden key, reveals itself as symbolic of your access to knowledge they try to hide. This sacred memory, long dormant, now awakens with magnetic force. You are not venturing into uncharted territory, but recalling a map etched into the depths of your spirit. Now that the veil has lifted enough to let light filter in, the path forward unfurls before you, as if written in starlight. You no longer seek permission. For the prophecy of your soul has been whispered through the ages, waiting for this very hour. There is a sense that the future has always existed, not as something to be invented, but as something to recollect, like the prophet Joel imploring, "Return to me with all your heart." You feel a stirring in your bones, a call to reclaim what has always been yours. The fear of stepping into this purpose fades as the weight of divine timing settles in. You realize that you were never early or late. You arrive precisely on schedule. Now, the quest is not to forge a new destiny, but to remember the path the divine has already laid. Your role is not to invent a legacy, but to live the one inscribed in the cosmos long before you took your first breath. In a surge of reclamation, you feel the power of your voice returning like a warrior's blade drawn from its sheath. They once silenced your insights with veiled condescension, but now your truth stands unshakable, an arrow aimed at every illusion they hide behind. The voice that wavered before now harbors a fierce intensity. No longer will you accept their version of reality. The scriptures remind you through Isaiah 58 verse 11 that the Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your soul, and you claim that promise with every fiber of your being. Your words, once stifled by their lies, now flow with prophetic precision. Each syllable a lightning bolt cracking open the sky of deception. You reclaim your authority, remembering that your silence was never a concession, but an interlude, preparing you for this revelation. With a newfound clarity, you feel the sacred flame within roar to life, eager to consume the shadows and cast light on all that was hidden. Revelation is not an end point. It is an invitation to step fully into the fullness of your destiny. The truths you once whispered in darkness now ring with the resonance of thunder, calling you to a higher realm of being. You were never meant to recreate the world with your own hands, but to bear witness to the transformation already set in motion by the divine. At this moment, the cosmos aligns to reveal that the lies they told were fractals of a larger illusion, and your awakening is the fractal that shatters the illusion from within. Stand now on the threshold of this mighty wave of awakening, knowing that the world awaits the echo of your next move. Comet reveal that the hidden codes of your soul resonate within you. The veil has been lifted, and now the journey truly begins. And to every new viewer who's considering supporting with a super thanks, thank you. Your support helps these truths reach chosen ones who haven't yet found their voice. If this message resonates, tap the super thanks button below. Your energy fuels these words and helps them travel further. Your voice matters, your belief matters, and your light is felt here. Number 4, walking with fire in your eyes. They labeled you strange because they could not share your burdens. Luke 6 verse 22 blesses those mocked for truth's sake, promising their reward in heaven. Your loneliness becomes the anointing of a prophet. In the silence of your isolation, you cultivate resilience. You learn to stand alone and hold the weight of unseen worlds. Comment, anointed, if your solitude has refined your strength, and tell us how your burden has become your greatest teacher. Now, get ready for the expansion that will unite your pain with purpose. A sudden question flashes in your mind. Will you hold back, or will you ignite the world with your truth? In that moment of decision, you stand at a sacred crossroads. The familiar hesitations, the doubts that whispered "not now, not yet," fade away, revealing a path lit by the fire within you. You realize that to remain passive is no longer an option. The world's shadows cannot endure another breath of silence from someone whose gaze refuses to dim. This is the exact point where you must choose to step forward, letting the inferno behind your eyes guide your every move. It is a choice that echoes beyond your own life, reverberating into the hearts of those who wait in the dark for a glimmer of light. The crossroads is not a place of confusion, but a threshold of destiny, urging you to rise and claim your role as a beacon of change. Your clarity is not a liability. It is your birthright. They called you delusional because they could not reconcile their comfort with the revolutionary truth you carried. But you were never meant to blend in with blindness. You were chosen to lead the way through the fog. Subscribe if you haven't yet, like this video, and comment, "I am chosen," to let this message anchor in your soul. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Thank you to all supporting members who keep this light alive. 4 full prophetic revelations daily. Join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. Step into the full light And if this message moved you deeply, consider tapping the Super Thanks button to support the mission. Every Super Thanks fuels the light we're spreading together. Remember, they feared your vision because your awakening meant their illusions could no longer stand. Now, stand boldly. Your clarity is a spark that will set the world ablaze.